This podcast does not contain spoilers.
I mean, that seems like a pretty dangerous thing to say to people. I'm going to throw arrows of famine upon you, and you won't be able to eat.
Welcome to Microsodes.
Welcome to Microsodes, a podcast
where we review movies
in less time than it takes to watch them
from two different perspectives. I'm Ashley, the movie novice, which means I haven't seen a lot of movies.
And I'm Bobbie, the movie connoisseur / cinephile, which means that I've seen a lot of movies, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert per se.
There you have it. Welcome to Microsodes.
Welcome to Microsodes.
What are we watching today?
We're going to be watching Hellboy, the Crooked Man.
Yes, and I don't know anything about Hellboy, so this is going to be a treat for me. Now, do I need to know anything about Hellboy before? Because I've never seen any of the movies.
It's a good question because I haven't seen this one, and I didn't see the one with David Harbour, the guy from Stranger Things. He actually was Hellboy in the third movie.
Oh, the officer?
Yeah, so in Stranger Things, he plays Hopper.
Yeah, Hopper. And
so there's a bunch of these movies that are out. The first two were directed by Guillermo del Toro. Do you know who that gentleman is?
A director?
Nailed it. Right out of the gates. He is the gentleman who directed Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay.
Also Pacific Rim.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very keen eye for, I think, visual representations of things. One of the movies I think that you would like a lot is probably Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, because it reflects Pan's Labyrinth so much. But I know that you don't know anything about Hellboy.
No. I also don't know anything about Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay.
I have not seen Pacific Rim.
So this is going to be, you're going into it totally blind. This is pretty cool.
Yes.
I actually really like this. So would you like me to read some interesting facts about Hellboy to you? Or do you just want to go to it straight blind?
No, I would like you to read some interesting facts. I think that might help a little bit.
Okay. I'm going to give you some background on the character of Hellboy.
Okay.
And then I will go down the list of movies, the actors that played in them, and then we can go to The Crooked Man.
That sounds great to me. Okay, So let's learn some facts about Hellboy.
Let's dive in. So Hellboy is a comic book character created by Mike Mignola from Dark Horse Comics. Some of you guys might recognize the Dark Horse Comics name. They do a lot of graphic novels. So they did 300. Mm-hmm. They did 300 Rise of an Empire, Sin City, which I know you haven't seen.
Well, I've seen like the posters, and it kind of looks like a graphic novel.
Exactly.
It's like black and white with hints of color, like pops of color.
Exactly. So Dark Horse Comics was kind of created as a juxtaposition to Marvel. They didn't want to have as much as of the flowery stuff. So they also have a version of Batman, the Punisher, things like those characters where it's very gritty.
Okay.
And very like dark. It's not fun and uplifting. It's
right.
Almost supposed to reflect our real life.
And that's kind of what I got based on the visual representation of like the posters like Sin City.
Makes sense. So demonic origins. This is for Hellboy.
Okay.
His real name is Anung Onrama, and he's a demon spawned from a demon father, Azazel, and a human mother, Sarah Hughes.
Azazel and Sarah Hughes?
Yes.
So she has like an average name, and he has one name? Like Madonna? Or Jesus?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they give demons last names. It seems
he's
like
a demon, and she's just a normal human being?
Yeah, that's what I said. A demon spawned from a demon father, and a regular mother.
Oh, a regular.
Or excuse
mother.
me, a human mother.
Oh, a human mother. Okay, I was like, what's a regular mother? Okay, cool. A human one.
So
a regular human mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure because I haven't read the graphic novel, but I do know that somehow Hellboy ended up in hell,
Mm-hmm.
and his coming to the world was supposed to signify the beginning of the apocalypse. So,
okay.
In one of the movies, I won't tell you which one, they tried to summon Hellboy to start the apocalypse.
Now, when you say they, who's they?
The Nazi occultists,
Oh,
led by Rasputin.
Oh, okay. So, like, we're bringing in Anastasia over here.
Listen, I just read what's on here and I go by what the movies are. But
Was
yeah,
that a good,
nailed it.
Yes. I got a reference of some sort.
So the Nazis were able to bring him from hell.
Mm-hmm.
However, the people that were there were killed, and the Americans actually took him in, and he was a baby at the time.
Okay.
And then he was brought up by a professor who founded the BRPD. Now, this is important because it's probably going to come up in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in all the other movies. He's kind of like works for, I would say, like the Men in Black. You've seen Men in Black.
Mm-hmm. Is this like that one where they were fighting? Oh gosh, what was that? It was like they went to this place and they were fighting aliens, and it was like RIPD or something.
Sort of, but
what was that movie?
It's called RIPD.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. And they weren't
Rhode
aliens,
Island
they were
Police
ghosts.
Department. Oh, it was in Rhode Island.
Yeah, and it was the Rest in Peace Division was the name of it.
I'm so sorry.
No,
remember that
I'm-
now. That was fantastic. Continue.
It was, I mean, it's a pretty nice, like, analogy of the two different movies. They're over the top. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. However, like I said, I can't talk about the one with Ron Perlman in it, or excuse me, with David Harbour in it. But the first two with Ron Perlman that were directed by Guillermo del Toro, I would say visually, they're quite stunning.
Okay.
They're really, really cool to look at. And I can't remember. I thought he might have won an Academy Award for Best Makeup or Best Visuals for Hellboy, The Golden Army. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look it up. But that's kind of the way that it works. So, getting back to the story, they adopt Hellboy. This professor raises him up. His name is Professor Broom.
Okay.
That's not really his name. Is Professor Trevor Rutenholm, but they call him Professor Broom anyway.
Oh.
And he works for the BRPD, not to be confused with the RIPD. And it stands for the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. And it's dedicating to protecting humanity from supernatural threats.
That's interesting. Okay. So it's kind of like RIPD and like MIB.
I guess they're caught somewhere in the middle. I mean, imagine all the government funding that's going on. No wonder why it costs $3,000 for a wrench. We got to be funding these people somehow.
I know. What division are they in? Are they in our government too? They just don't tell us.
They just operate.
Oh, those are those. That's the spending that they don't tell us about because they can't let us know that there are actual aliens living among us on
or
Earth,
supernatural
or
forces.
supernatural forces living among us. On
Evidently, they're probably going to come black bag us now. We'll never
Yeah.
see the light of day again.
Exactly. Just remember us fondly, dear listeners.
That's it. So anyway, they say he's kind of invincible. He does bleed, but on his right hand, he has what's called the right hand of doom.
Okay.
And this is a large, red, seemingly indestructible right hand made of stone. And that's usually what he uses to like punch his way through things. He's not a very cerebral thinker, because he just always assumes that he can get away with everything based upon force and might.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see that probably used quite a bit.
Okay. Now, I assume, even though I have not seen the Hulk or anything about that, but
Yes.
is it similar to that? He like punches through things? Does
Only
the Hulk
with
do
one
that?
hand. His other hand, he uses a giant, like, specialized gun, or at least he has in the movies that I've seen.
For Hellboy?
Yes.
Okay.
His right hand is the hand that he punches through everything with.
Okay. And is it just a fist? Like, can he use it for things like writing?
I don't know if he can use it for writing. He's definitely used it for lighting things on fire. Like, the hand has been on fire, and he likes to smoke cigars, so he smoked a lot of cigars with it.
But he has to hold them in his left hand. He can't like hold a cigar.
He holds
in
the
his
cigar
right.
in his left hand, and then he uses his right hand to strike a match, I guess. He also files down his horns, because he has gigantic horns that come out of the top of his head.
Does it hurt?
Yeah, it actually doesn't feel great for him, but he feels like it makes him feel more of like regular society. Because when he walks around, he's a giant red being with his gigantic hand and horns. People are going to think he's probably the devil.
But he is.
He is not the devil.
He's a devil's spawn?
He is a demon spawn.
A demon. Oh, okay. So he is not the devil.
So
and he's not the devil's son.
I'm going to just read you the summary, because I think that might help put it together. Are you ready?
The summary of Hellboy in general?
Of all the things that they had to say about it.
Okay. Not about this movie, just about Hellboy?
Correct.
Okay.
Hellboy's lore is rooted in demonic origins, a destiny to bring about the apocalypse, and a struggle to choose his own path as a protector of humanity. Because he also works for the BRPD.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he's he's kind of like an enforcer agent for them.
So he's nice. He's like a good person.
Well, he struggles a lot with trying to live in a human world. It's almost like Lucifer, right?
Yeah.
He's struggling to kind of connect with people in different ways.
Between the id and the superego.
You heard it here first, folks.
Sorry.
The movies have adapted various storylines and characters from the comics, with Del Toro films being particularly well regarded for their visual style and faithfulness to the source material. The 2019 reboot, which I hadn't seen, and the Crooked Man film aim to provide fresh takes on Hellboy's world and adventures.
Nice. Okay, so there are 4 Hellboy installments.
Correct.
And the third one was with David Harbour.
Correct, but there's also some animated ones that are in there. So I'm just going to read them to you. I'm not going to read any of the things that go on with it.
Okay.
So the first Hellboy was in 2004. It was directed by Guillermo del Toro and starred Ron Perlman as Hellboy. There was Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, in 2008, also directed by Guillermo del Toro and also starring Ron Perlman. Then they did a reboot of Hellboy in 2019, directed by Neil Marshall and starring David Harbour. And now this one is going to be The Crooked Man, which is the one that we're watching this afternoon, which they say is kind of like a prequel to all these movies. So it might be a good thing that we're watching this.
Okay.
And it's a reboot directed by Brian Taylor and starring Jack Kesy as Hellboy. There's also been 2 animated Hellboy films. Hellboy Sword of Storms that came out in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And Hellboy Blood and Iron, which came out in 2007. Now, those didn't say who they were directed by because they're animated. And additionally, if I start reading what it says about it, it'll give the whole plot away, which I don't want to do.
Okay.
So that's it. So that's what we've got right now.
So this episode featuring Hellboy the Crooked Man is going to be a little different.
Absolutely. Because I have no idea what we're going to watch. And we have never watched Hellboy together.
That is true. And I've never seen any of them.
Pretty interesting to start off this podcast. And we'll see you after the show.
But first, the movie details for today's feature film.
So here are the movie details for today's feature film, titled Hellboy, the Crooked Man. The release date was June 20th of 2024. The genre, now I will say this, there's a lot of genres to be put in there. I'm just going to read the top 5. I think there was 16.
16?
Because it kept saying, so I'll read you the top 5.
Okay.
Body horror.
Body horror. I don't think I've ever heard of this.
Folk horror.
Okay.
Superhero.
Okay.
Surprise.
Surprise is a genre?
And mystery.
Okay, mystery.
Now, there were other ones that said monster horror, supernatural horror, suspense thriller, and the list keeps going on and on.
So I would say, so if it were me, I'd say horror, suspense, and supernatural thriller.
And superhero.
Oh, but you said
Technically,
he wasn't a superhero.
Well, he's a comic book character, so he's going to have some kind of superpowers. That's what we were talking about with the red arm of doom.
Right. Okay. So only if he uses his powers for good.
I mean, you can be a superhero.
But you're not a hero.
Oh,
You're
I guess
villain.
a supervillain. Fair enough. Good point. The runtime is 1 hour and 39 minutes. It's rated R. The platforms in which you can watch it for free are Hulu, Disney Plus, and then you have to pay. Fandango Home was $3.99 at the time of this posting. And then also you could watch it on Apple TV, but that's for $5.99. So I don't know if you'd like to pay for it, but those are the platforms in which you could watch it. And then the director is Brian Taylor, who we brought up earlier. Now, he has made a couple of other movies, one which you've seen, but I'm going to say the ones you haven't seen first.
Oh, okay.
He made Crank with Jason Statham.
Okay.
Crank High Voltage.
I'm so
The
sorry.
sequel.
I'm so sorry.
The sequel to Crank.
Okay, you got to say that again. I'm so sorry. I might leave it in. I might take it out. But
Okay.
that was just so funny. Okay, the first is Crank. The second is?
So director Brian Taylor made Crank. Crank High Voltage, sequel to the original Crank. Jonah Hex, which is widely considered one of the biggest movie flops of all time. And then Gamer. You remember that one?
We saw Gamer with Gerard Butler.
Nailed it. Yeah,
That
right out of the
was-
gates.
That was a movie.
I mean, yeah, technically any feature motion picture is a movie.
Well, I don't know if we're going to talk about it.
Oh. So those are the movie details.
Nice. Well, I'm going to go watch the trailer, and then we'll see you after I watch it. Okay. We'll see you then. So I just watched the trailer for Hellboy, the Crooked Man. Is that what it's
Well,
called?
you made it sound like a question. Did you watch a different Hellboy trailer? Because there's 3 other ones you could have watched.
Shoot. No, I think I watched the right one.
Perfect.
Well, first I watched an 18-second one and realized this is not the trailer I need to be watching because there wasn't a lot going on, but it may have been one of those preview for the trailers. Anyway, so I watched the trailer for Hellboy, the Crooked Man, and it seemed very eerie. There was a lot going on. They mentioned a lot about evil. It, to me, didn't seem like it would be a superhero or like cartoon, not cartoon, but what is it called?
A dark comic or a graphic novel?
A comic. It doesn't feel like it would be a traditional comic book style movie.
Mm-hmm.
It seems more of something that's, yeah, like a supernatural horror. It looked very interesting, although now I see what you said by body horror, because it kind of looked like this lady was wrapped inside a snake. No. A snake was wrapped around a lady, and it also looked like a raccoon went in her mouth, which is also kind of strange.
Yeah, I would say that would be pretty horrific to my body.
Horrorific? Is that what you said?
I wish I did.
Oh. So that seems a little nuts, but the trailer as a whole looked very interesting and seemed, from what I saw, that it could be a standalone movie. I mean, thank you for explaining all of the other things about it, because I think I would definitely need to know a little bit about what the movie's about, but it looked very interesting, and it didn't, I mean, there wasn't a lot to give away.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's movies that are out there where you might be able to pick something up and not really know what the background is of it. I don't know if this is one of those. If you can, or if you have just seen Hellboy the Crooked Man by itself and you want to let us know, as you watch the other ones, we'd be happy to hear from you guys out there as well. I just know that if I went into it blind, I might just be a little bit, I don't know what's going on, or how did they come across this Hellboy? And once again, we haven't seen the movie yet, so maybe they're going to go about how he became who he is, but I'm not 100% sure.
So we're all in this together, and this is going to be a very unique microsode, because I have never seen one Hellboy movie ever. So get excited for our review, because I'm excited to watch it.
Absolutely. Well, here's the synopsis for everybody who's out there. Hellboy and a rookie BPRD agent find themselves stranded in 1950s rural Appalachia. Appalachia?
That is so crazy, because the podcast I was listening to, they were just talking about an Appalachian festival. How weird is that?
Is that Appalachia?
Well, I don't know. They said Appalachia.
If I butchered it, please forgive me. I'm not from the South, so I don't know.
Oh, it's the South?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh my gosh, I don't know where it is.
Aren't that Appalachian Mountains, like in Kentucky and stuff?
Probably.
Oh, okay. So they're stranded in 1950s rural Appalachia. They soon discover a community of witches led by a local devil are connected to Hellboy's past. That's the synopsis.
That is very interesting. I didn't get that at all from the trailer. So I'm even more excited now, because I like stuff with the occult or witches or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
witches or whatever,
You didn't get that when people were getting bitten by snakes or raccoons were climbing in their mouth, that it would be something with the occult or devils or anything?
Well, I figured devil because he was from hell, but I didn't know it was going to be witches. I thought maybe it was, I don't know, some powerful demon force.
Some peeps.
Sort. I don't know.
Well, I'm incredibly excited about this.
You said this is interesting. This is interesting.
Well, this is interesting, and I'm incredibly excited about this because I have absolutely no idea what we're about to watch.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect.
Like I said, I've seen the other two, but
you haven't seen the third.
I haven't seen the third.
So we're going 1, 2, 4, and I'm just going 4.
You're just going. She's going the distance. She's going for speed. She's all alone in a time of need. You remember that song?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Well, we're going to go ahead and turn this on.
We'll see you
after the show. Wow. Um, I can say that they put a film together. I don't know if I would call that a movie, but here we are.
Yeah.
What about you? What did you think?
I it was a movie. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we're gonna dive into it for you guys. But you might hear a little bit of, I don't want to say negativity, but maybe just some harsh critiques
yes.
of the film noir that we just watched.
But there were some positive parts of it too. It wasn't all negative. So that's
Okay.
good.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yes. Tiny.
Yeah. Should I jump into story?
Yes.
Okay. What I said, and it kind of goes back to what Ashley and I were talking about before we got done watching the movie. If you've never seen a Hellboy movie,
Like me.
I think that really helped you out, what I said.
Yes.
Because I don't know in the story at all if they really delved into where he came from, what was going on, how he got there.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave the story a 1.0 because I think whenever you have a reboot, right? So we had the first 3 Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. Then we had, I think, either 1 or 2 with Andrew Garfield. And now they have Tom Holland. When you reboot something, you have to show at least where the origin came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know at any point throughout that movie, unless it totally flew right past me, if I understood anything about where he came from. Did you?
No.
Okay. If you're out there and you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, it's seen this, this, and this, I'd be happy to watch it again to see that. But in the first Hellboy, it shows there's a very poignant scene right at the very beginning of the movie that shows basically where he came from and what his intended purpose was supposed to be. In this movie, I felt like I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
They started off like basically almost mid-story.
Yes.
And so I didn't know where to go from. I didn't know who was bad, who was good, what was going on. There's spiders that are getting released into the forest. He's working with people, but someone also might be dead. It was just I think in a comic book movie, there has to be a clear good guy and bad guy. And I felt like in this one, the story was just too gray. There's too much mist in between. I couldn't delineate or extrapolate who was good and who was bad. It was just kind of like characters that were thrown together into various scenes. So it wasn't a great one for me, especially because if you didn't know the origin of where Hellboy came from,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the movie wouldn't make any sense.
Exactly. Now, after you saw the movie,
Mhm.
I guess based on past comic book style movies,
Okay.
are they usually standalones?
I
Or-
mean, that's a great question. I think it depends upon the box office reception
Mm-hmm.
and the excitement around the character. Like, nobody really thought the Avengers could work until Robert Downey Jr. became Iron Man. And then when they saw, like, oh, wow, people, like, really love the superhero movie. Because if you think about it before then, like, there was Spider-Man. That was Tobey Maguire, and it was like, is this really like something that you can build off of for an entire franchise? And I don't think that you could say yes at that point. But once people saw Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, I think they kind of started buying into it. And then right after that, on the heels of that, they had Iron Man 2, but they also threw in Captain America with Chris Evans. And then people were like, oh, wow, these are really great if these people could work together. And then they started throwing in more and more and more characters. So I think you can't make a standalone movie a sequel unless there's like audience fanfare behind it or some kind of like, I guess, desire to see that character brought onto the silver screen.
Okay.
So for me, I think the problem with the story was I've seen 2 of 4. I didn't see the David Harbour one. I might have seen a couple scenes of it, but I didn't watch it all the way through. But going from 1 and 2, seeing the origin story, and then going to this, and it was just like, oh, you're right in the middle of it. You're on a train in the middle of Appalachia, which that's not a spoiler. It literally happens in the first 3 seconds of the film.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, how do we get, like, where are you going? And I think that's a really good thing that a lot of the Marvel movies do.
Right.
Sorry, I know that was a long-winded answer.
I guess I don't know a lot about the Marvel. So basically what you're saying is the Marvel movies aren't standalone. You have to watch originals first, as well as Hellboy. Like,
I think for me in this one, if you want to understand who Hellboy is,
mm-hmm.
you should at least watch the first Hellboy, because at least it gives a kind of a character origin.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Iron Man, you didn't know that Tony Stark was going to become Iron Man until there's an origin story behind it. Same thing with Captain America as Steve Rogers. He is Captain America now, but where did he come from? Like, how did he become Captain America?
Right.
In this, I mean, you could watch this Hellboy as a standalone movie, but I think you'd be very confused about where the character came from and what's going on.
I agree.
So I think that you would at least need to watch the first Iron Man, the first Black Panther, and those kinds of movies to figure out where you're going. But once you watch the first of those, does it matter if you watch Iron Man 3 or Iron Man 2? I don't think so. And the same thing for Captain America. I mean, there's some stuff that kind of overlaps, but I don't know if it's necessary. For Hellboy, there's only those first 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Then they try to reboot it. And then this was the second reboot.
Yeah.
And so if you have never seen it before, I don't know where you go from. If you've never seen it before, I don't know where you go from.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, without your help before we watched it, I mean, everything that he talked about earlier on the podcast that's all I knew before going into this movie. And if I didn't have that information, I would be even more confused than I already was.
Right.
For story, I gave it a 1.1.
Okay.
I also agree with you that it was a bit convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of gray. And we don't mean literally. It wasn't like visually. It was like the storyline was gray.
Right. Okay.
It didn't feel like there were a lot of highs or lows. They were kind of all in between high and low.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was never a high or low. It was just kind of in the neutral.
Yeah. When I review each category for a movie, I tend to write little details that I wrote down during the movie.
Okay.
In like examples, I guess.
This is exciting because I don't think I've ever heard this before. Okay.
I think I've tried to do it differently in the past, but I'll just show you what I actually like write down. So basically, there wasn't a lot of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really know what was going on, which is what you said.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of odd things that occurred.
Right.
So the first thing I wrote is you'll find this out in the first, can I talk about the spider? They'll find it out in the first like minute.
Sure, because I don't think that gives anything away in the movie.
I agree. So the movie starts out with them on a train.
Right.
And I think she was talking about what they were doing, but it felt like there was too much information and also a lot of like vagueness to what she
Right.
was saying. She was like explaining a story. Oh, this is why we did this and that was why we did that. And we are here for blah, blah, blah. But it didn't feel, I mean, obviously it's not natural for someone to speak like that, but the audience needs to know why they're in this situation.
Right. Somebody has to be the person that explains the plot.
Right.
Because if you just come in as the audience and they're on a train, you're like, the heck is going on?
Yeah. And I don't know if they just lost me because I literally can't remember anything she said about it. I don't remember why they were going. I don't remember why they were taking the spider. I literally do not remember. So there was one detail that was very interesting to me.
Okay.
Or another detail that was very interesting to me.
Okay.
In the story, and I would say it's a story because it's a thing he did. It's not like, well, it could be writing. Anyway, Hellboy wakes up Detective Song to tell her to go back to sleep. Oh, hello, hello. And she wakes up. And then he says, oh, go back to sleep. She was sleeping.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the writing or the dialogue, but
anyway,
it's a very weird scene.
Yeah, I thought that was odd.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what I had for story.
Okay.
For acting, I gave it a 2.8.
Wow. Okay.
I thought Detective Song was the best actress throughout. But then I thought the Reverend was pretty good. He was a pretty good actor.
The guy who played the Cricket Man?
No, the Reverend in the church.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking back on it, the blonde girl that was on the horse, she wasn't actually too bad. I don't think she was a bad actress at all. Hellboy just seemed like he was kind of doubtful. I don't know.
Okay.
And overall, I would say the consistency with all of the acting was that none of them, I don't know if any of them really knew the backstories of their characters. So, I mean, none of the performances to me felt truly believable, but I don't think it's the acting. I think it's because they didn't have a backstory to their characters, so they didn't even know what the motivations were coming from in their character roles.
Okay. I mean, I can see where you're coming from. You and I are completely off on this category, but I can see where you're coming from.
So that's why I gave it a little bit above average, but not quite a 3.
I said I gave acting a 1.2.
Oh.
And I said Hellboy didn't have actors, they had mannequins. And the reason why, when you see people, if you choose to watch this movie, what you'll see is there's just a lot of smoking and shooting and things that just don't go anywhere. I gave it an extra 0.02 because I felt like the people who had to do the grotesque movements and like had to like really contort their bodies deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say that anybody was a good actor in this. And I'm surprised to hear you say that you like the Reverend so much. That's very funny.
Why?
I thought he was an over the top, like nonsensical character, but it's just, I get where you're coming from.
He just felt like obnoxiously eccentric, and it was believable to me.
Right. And that's the reason why I said, I get where you're coming from, and I can get behind what you're saying. I thought, for me, the beginning to the end, it just felt like these people were they stuck them in a forest and said, let's make a movie. And nobody, even the person who had to go through 8 hours of makeup, didn't really seem like he even really wanted to be there or really knew what his character was supposed to do. And you're right, it could be the writing and the dialogue, which also isn't very high on my list, but it didn't feel like he embodied the character at all. I mean, if you did any kind of like, I guess what they call it in when you make a superhero movie is like canon. Like you go and you read the Hellboy comic books, you do those kinds of things. You might watch the first and the second Hellboy, or maybe the third one. It just didn't really, I don't know, it didn't speak to me at all.
I can get behind that.
Okay. Okay. With that resounding endorsement, I guess I'll go on to writing and dialogue. I gave this category a 1.5. And the reason why, even though I rated the acting a little bit, I guess, a little bit lower than this category, I said that they at least tried to throw a bunch of ideas together. Now, did it work? No, it didn't work. It's very evident that it didn't work. However, they try to throw in ideas of demonology, witchcraft, and a bunch of other stuff that I guess those were the only two things. They tried to throw together witchcraft and demonology, and there was a bunch of other things that kind of came along with the Hellboy canon, like we just kind of talked about. It felt like some of the stories that you hear when you're growing up, like an Abby Yo-Yo or something like that, and that might be very, if you know what that is out there, awesome, you know what I'm talking about. But there's these kind of old-timey folklorish tales that you hear in areas like Appalachia or down on the bayou, or even, on some of the Native American reservations that are out there. And I think that they try to smash it all together to create this movie. And I thought some of what they were trying to get after was interesting. Mm-hmm. It's just they didn't ever get there. They really never succeeded in what their idea was. It was just they tried to write something in and smash all the stuff together, and it just did not really meld all that well. So that's what I had for writing and dialogue.
I scored writing and dialogue a 1.2.
Okay.
I said I did like, again, this is my new format because
Just because.
Just because. I'll point out a couple highlights in writing and dialogue that I particularly noted.
Okay.
I liked that Tom told a detailed story about the witch and how he got the lucky bone. He used a lot of adjectives. He described everything in detail, and it left me feeling like, oh, I don't have to ask any questions. There's just a lot going on. However, I think all the people in the house at the beginning when they meet the people in Appalachia.
Right.
They were all talking very quickly. It all felt very rushed. Like they were rushing to say the lines before they had to cut.
Right.
Another thing I noted about writing and dialogue was that Effie Kolb, the witch, she reminded me of the girl from Longlegs saying all the weird things.
Oh, right.
Like
the daughter that was locked up.
In Longlegs,
This is my betwixt something far off Ruby-Doo.
Exactly.
That's her?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It reminded me, this witch in Hellboy reminded me of the girl in Longlegs.
Okay.
However, everything she did say in this movie, even though it was off the wall, it was very odd, strange dialogue. Mm-hmm. However, it was all grammatically correct. So I really liked that. I noticed that. I also liked that in addition to it being grammatically correct, they used an extensive vocabulary.
Okay.
I also noticed that the Reverend said motherfucking. And I thought that was a little inappropriate for a Reverend to be using.
Well, I mean, it is in the Bible.
It is?
Ezekiel 5:16. Get your motherfucking hands off my wife.
That's a lie.
That's not in there. It's not in there. Sorry.
What's the real passage?
I mean, I can look it up. When I say Ezekiel 5:16.
Is that what it was?
I think so.
Okay. This is very exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Is it a good one?
I don't know. I just
okay,
when
wait.
You ready?
Sorry, yes.
when I shall send upon them evil arrows of famine, which shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you, and will break your staff of bread.
I feel like that's appropriate for this movie.
I feel like even though I just pulled that one out, I said, oh, leave your mother hands off my wife. I mean, that seems like a pretty dangerous thing to say to people. I'm going to throw arrows of famine upon you and you won't be able to eat.
I mean, it sounds kind of like, I agree. That was crazy.
Nice.
Nice save.
Nice save. I knew where you were going.
For direction, I gave it a 7.8. I'm kidding. It's only out of 5. I gave direction a 2.3.
Okay.
I said I didn't notice if the pacing was too fast or too slow, which means it must have been fine in my eyes.
Okay.
Unless I was just paying attention to other things. I also noticed there were odd scene transitions. Like we would close our eyes and wake up at another place.
Yeah, it was like scene.
But it was also the transition they used. It felt like we were like the black goes in from the outsides and closes in kind of like a camera lens. Or it's like when you can add movements to PowerPoints.
Oh, right.
Like transition.
This is a star wipe.
Huh? Oh, is that from one side of the screen to the other?
It opens up like a star.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Is a transition from one slide to the next.
I love that.
Yeah.
This was like a donut.
Okay. Reverse.
Yeah. So it's like your eye was closing.
Yeah.
You know, I could be misremembering that, so don't quote me on this, but that's what I think happened when I wrote this down in my notes.
Okay.
And it felt like the transition they used was odd because it was like we were closing our eyes and then transporting ourselves to another place where usually that transition is more for someone who goes to sleep. Like
Sure.
if you see in a movie, someone goes to sleep and we're supposed to be in the actor's perspective. We're like, oh, that, and then we open up. It just felt like, okay, so are we sleeping or...
Who's sleeping?
So that was what I had for direction.
Okay. I can see that. I did a little bit different. I gave it a 1.0. There's a couple things I think that you touched on that kind of coincide with what I was talking about, which was the transitions into scenes. That almost it made me feel like I was in the middle of a flip book. Like I could start somewhere and just like flip it like, and then I would just be at the end and I'd be like, oh, cool. I guess I had an experience, but I'm not sure.
That was a great analogy.
Thank you. And the other part that I really wasn't a huge fan of was that the Tom's cat bone seemed like Harry Potter's wand.
Especially at the end.
And I just couldn't get away from that. It was like every time that I saw this specific piece of the dialogue and script and movie and story, it just made me feel like I was watching something completely different that was being done so poorly. You know, you had Tom's cat bone, and then it was kind of like a knockoff of Harry Potter's wand. Like if you were going to go drink RC Cola and Dr. Skipper, like
instead of
Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
you were going to be a little bit let down.
I agree.
Because first of all, it wasn't supposed to be about magic, but it was. But then it wasn't. But then it was. So I don't know if that has to do with the writing or the acting, but I know something has to go on with the direction because the director has to read this and look at it and say, I just don't think we should do it this way. So
yeah, they were using it, in an interesting way at the end.
Yeah. So
it also oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, finish.
Oh no, that was it. It's okay.
You mentioned the bone, which also reminded me of the popsicle sticks they used in Salem's Lot.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Doesn't it? Because
That's a really good one. But the ones in Salem's Lot, they had to use something to bind them together to make it into an actual cross. You couldn't just
hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't Steve Spiros it.
Right? You have a cross, 2 sticks, right?
That's a really, really deep inside joke. If you know who Steve Spiros is, then shout out to you.
Because when I walked in Waterloo, they used the cross. They treated me like a vampire.
And if Steve Spiros, if you ever hear this, then shout out to you.
I'm going back to Waterloo where the vampires hang out.
All right, so yeah, that's what I had for direction. If somebody out there has a different viewpoint than me, please let us know. But that's just kind of what I saw in it. So moving on to visuals, I rated it as a 1.5. I would have given it a 1 as well, but, and this is something that's a personal preference, so I don't want to harp on it again, but there wasn't a whole lot of practical effects on a lot of stuff. It was pretty much all CGI. The reason why I gave it a little bump in the visuals was because I thought that they did Hellboy's makeup pretty well, and I think a lot of the other characters that had to contort and do different things, I thought that they really pulled that like set design and overall makeup together in a really interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that they did a really good job with that. But outside of that, it was all CGI, and I think that's where a lot of the budget went. And I want to be kind to whoever edited the movie. I just don't think it was their best job.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I liked that you mentioned the CGI. For visuals, I gave it a 3.8.
Whoa! Oh, well, that
But-
just speaks to the way that we see things. Because
Exactly.
you really enjoy, or there are, I wouldn't say that that's something that you go out to look for specifically. It's just something that you enjoy more than I do.
Yeah, it's something that stands out to me. You know, if you're walking to a store or something and someone might say like, oh my gosh, look at that blender. But someone saw the cart at the front was turned the opposite way. And they're like, I can't believe someone would leave a cart like this. Like people are honestly looking at two separate things all the time. So it's kind of cool that we look at movies differently.
Yeah, I think that was a really confusing analogy for me.
Oh,
But I think one that might resonate a little bit more with me and maybe more with you is that you're on one side of the street, I'm on the other. We both witness a car crash and we see two totally different things. We might say that one person's at fault, the other person isn't, and vice versa.
yeah,
Because we're seeing two totally different things.
exactly. See, the thing is, even if we're standing next to each other, we'd probably still see different things.
That's true.
Because it's whatever you first focus on. So we could be watching the exact same thing, like a movie. Oh my gosh, that's what we're doing.
See?
We're all the way back around.
Here we go.
So for the CGI, I'll talk about that first.
Sure.
I did feel like the CGI looked unreal. However, I think the movements of the CGI, like they had CGI animals. So a lot of the movements on how the CGI like moved around looked very real to me. So what I'm thinking is maybe the CGI was good, but the lighting on the CGI didn't match the lighting in the scene. You know, like when you do
But if you're
Photoshop
doing-
and if you're putting like a person from a sunny day in something with an overcast background, you have to like
Right.
adjust the color.
Yeah, but that's the reason why you have CGI and not a practical effect, is because you want to make it look realistic. So if you can see that it's definitely CGI, then everyone's like, well, then why don't I just go on my PC and watch, I don't know, somebody create a Hellboy animated version of something? Because that's what, for me, if you're going to do CGI, you better do it really well. So that way it kind of blends into certain things. But this didn't feel like that. It felt like they, I don't know, if it
I think-
existed anymore, the kids from like CT College or whatever we used to watch. Like,
ITT,
Yeah,
ITT Tech.
ITT Tech. You can't sue us because you're already out of business.
Yeah, because you screwed over all of your
Because they already,
students.
yeah, your students. But it seems like they got someone from there to do their CGI. And that was the reason why I gave it such a negative
Okay.
score.
So, other than the CGI, I'll say the lighting wasn't as consistent in some spots. The only scene that I wrote down that was very like outlandish to me with lighting was when the witch was sitting on the horse watching the people outside the cabin. Do you remember they were all standing around and she like came up on a horse?
Yes.
When we saw them, when the camera looked at the people like Hellboy and his squad,
Right.
there was a huge spotlight behind them, but not, they weren't blocking it. It was like next to them, behind them on like the porch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time we saw the witch, it was dark. Like the continuity of that scene didn't match.
Fair enough.
At the end, when we saw the witch, we finally saw the spotlight. But for the whole beginning, it didn't match what we should have seen.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like anything visual. I know that they were in a forest, but even by the way they were dressed, nothing seemed like it was in the 1950s, did it? Like
it was supposed to be in the 1960s.
It was supposed to be in the 50s because at the end he says, "Oh, I can't wait for the 60s." And that's when I found out that it was set in the 1950s.
Oh.
At the end of the movie. It was like probably the last line. And that's the only time.
That's so interesting. I had no idea that's what he said.
Yeah.
Huh.
Weird,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, other than those points, I guess, I also gave it a high score because I liked the practical effects in the movie.
Which practical effects specifically?
So it was like the chest piece and the hands and the prosthetics on the face for Hellboy.
Okay.
The Crooked Man's prosthetics and his hands stood out to me. And the silicone bodysuit.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it in the trailer, like a raccoon goes in and tries to inhabit a body. Anyway, it's like like a deflated beach ball.
Sure.
But they make it out of silicone. So they spent so much time on that scene because it was probably very expensive, but it looked really good.
Okay.
So they might not have had a lot of practical, but what they did have was amazing.
Okay.
I think that, and the lighting in the forest at the end of the movie
Mm-hmm.
felt like they were, I don't know, in a warehouse and you didn't see a lot of background. They
Right.
made it kind of like black. It
Mhm.
was so dark that I feel like it was a good idea, especially if they were trying to cover up whatever background that they were filming in. They did a good job with the lighting because we couldn't see anything.
Okay.
That was it.
All right. So I'll let you go first. What is your preliminary score?
My preliminary score for Hellboy the Crooked Man is 2.24.
Nice. Okay. So that's your first preliminary score,
Mhm.
and that's just the averages of everything that you went down, but it's not your final overall score.
It might not be.
Okay. My preliminary score was 1.24.
Oh.
That's right. Now, because this is our first time, if you don't mind, I'll go first.
Yes, please.
Okay. So with our new format that we're doing, I actually deducted the 0.24 from the score, and I'm giving this movie a 1. I thought that would make her laugh. She had no idea that I was going to
No.
write that.
Not at all.
I think for all the reasons, and if you have ever seen, so it would be interesting, maybe what Ashley and I will do is we'll do like a follow-up to this episode, and I'll have her watch the first Hellboy, and then we can compare the two. If you've ever seen the first or the second Hellboy with Ron Perlman, not, like I said, I haven't seen the third one with David Harbour, but if you've ever seen those, you would say like, what is this by comparison? I don't know how they considered this really specifically to be a movie. It just seemed like there was a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, a bunch of flip book things that went through. Some of the dialogue was fine, some of the makeup was fine, but the story overall was left completely lacking. And especially if you know the Hellboy lore, the Crooked Man specifically is like not someone that he would ever be either intimidated by or afraid of in any way, because he's a demon. And so it didn't really make a lot of sense for me. If it were up to me, I don't know, this isn't a quick draw, so I can't say it, but I would not recommend anyone to see this movie unless you're just a huge Hellboy fan and you really want to just keep going on with some of the lore and the movies that they're putting out. But that's what I got.
Nice. So
Not specifically. I think I was kind of harsh, but it's just the truth of what I saw as a movie person.
well, I like your truth.
Thank you.
For my overall final score,
Mm-hmm.
I gave Hellboy the Crooked Man a 1.9.
What?
I know.
Nice. Okay.
I took it from a 2.24 to a 1.9. I almost made it 2, and I was like, I don't know. It was a slog to get through.
It was a what?
A slog.
Wow. Very nicely done. Somebody's been doing their Elevate.
Yes.
Shout out to Elevate. If anybody does it, good for you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It makes you feel really smart and really stupid at the same time.
Believe me. Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it, honestly.
Sometimes you feel smart. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm killing it. And then you get the lowest score in everything that you've ever got. Oh, it's your 570th lowest score.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
For the people out there that do Elevate, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. If you haven't, give it a shot. You might like it.
Yeah, it's like Brain Games. It's an app for your phone that has games that test your knowledge in different areas.
And help you improve every day.
Right. So I gave it a 1.9 and I dropped it because, and okay, I wrote this in my notes and I don't really remember why I wrote it or why it was weird. But I wrote weird music before Witch Balls chapter. Like right before the Witch Balls chapter,
Yeah.
it was very weird music and I felt like it didn't feel right. Wow,
Right.
I feel a lot in all my reviews. I apologize, everyone.
Just as a quick aside note, though, there's 3 chapters in it.
Yes,
What are the 3 chapters?
Witch Balls, Lucky Bone, the Hurricane.
So that's how the movie's broken down. So what Ashley's referring to is the music right before the quote unquote first chapter
Yeah.
starts.
And
in
it's
the
just like
movie.
text on a screen.
Right. It doesn't, I don't think that really like plays that much into the story, each one.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, it's text on the screen is the way that they put it on there.
Yeah. And I guess I thought the music was weird. And I guess I wrote it in my notes because it was important enough at the time to write it down.
Right.
So if you watch this movie, listen to the music right before the chapter and then you can tell me what it was.
And that's literally the name of it. So don't think we're making this up.
No. This is all real. At the beginning of the movie, there's a fight scene and big band music was playing. It
Mhm.
felt very odd. And I think the music throughout was the only thing that tied the 1950s theme to anywhere, but I had no idea. So the music was odd from beginning to end until at the very end he says, man, I can't wait for the 60s.
Right.
Other than that, I had no idea. Anyway, I really liked the double entendre
Yeah.
because at first he's corrupt, kind of
Right.
like a crooked man,
Mm-hmm.
but he is also literally crooked because his head is sideways.
Yeah, exactly. Like Fall Guy. Or excuse me,
Yes.
like the Fall Guy.
Like the Fall Guy. Yes, exactly. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
And lastly, there were a lot of things that I noticed throughout the movie, and I might be looking into this too much.
Okay.
I'm usually not sensitive to stuff like this, and it was everything that I'm telling you was incredibly nuanced. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't promoted. It was just something that I noticed throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example.
Okay. Well, you haven't said what it is yet.
Right. Okay. So there were some underlying themes that I noticed throughout the movie that made it feel as if women were sexualized.
Okay.
And I could be looking into this too much because it was not obvious. They were all very veiled, but that's kind of what I saw. So I'll give you a couple examples.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first, I noticed that when we saw the silicone body, of course, it was made for the movie and it was supposed to be the witch, but it was a lot of nakedness.
I see.
I don't know, but they zoomed in a lot on the body, which is fine. I mean, a lot of movies do that, especially with women.
Yeah.
But another one was and you see it in the trailer, there's a girl who has a snake wrapped around her body going into her mouth, but it also comes out of her vagina. Like, why does that need to happen?
Yeah.
Here's my last one. Okay, at the very end,
Okay.
there were people they were referencing.
Okay.
And I noticed that the details they used or the adjectives they used to describe these people,
Mm-hmm.
there were 4 men and 3 women
Okay.
that they were saying. They described the men as gambler, murderer,
Okay.
lying drunk,
Okay.
or child killer.
Okay.
And the women were cheating whore,
Mm-hmm.
philanderer,
Okay.
fornicator.
Okay.
So all the women had to do with sex. Everything in the women's had to do with sex, and all the other ones were like gambler, murderer, lying drunk. And the women were like cheating whore, philanderer.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, I can't defend any of that. I guess that's the kind of stuff that goes on in like a small town, and in the 1800s, maybe that's the only thing that they put on there.
Yeah.
However, I mean, there was a lot going on in the 50s and the 60s moving towards equality.
I feel like none of these details were exaggerated.
Right.
Only if you were looking for it, or only if you were sensitive would you notice something like that. And I'm usually not sensitive, but I don't know. I'm probably looking way too much into this and I'm being too sensitive on it. But those are just random things that I noticed.
Okay. I mean, if those are the things that you saw, you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we're on here. Well, there we are.
It's been fun.
I had a great time.
I did
Hellboy
too.
the Crooked Man. Look at us.
Oh, yeah. If you're listening to this on iHeartRadio, thank you for tuning in.
iHeartRadio.
Exactly.
Some of you guys have been reaching out through YouTube, through the email, and through our platforms. We really appreciate the feedback that you guys have for us, the interactions that we get to have with you guys.
Definitely.
Because obviously we do this because we enjoy one another, but we also do it so that way you guys get a little bit of a smile and some laughter out of your day as well.
Yeah. And then you can see if you want to watch a movie or not. Oh, wow. I really wanted to watch Hellboy the Crooked Man. And then you listen to this and you're like, maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe there's a Cliff Notes version.
And then you'll find a better movie.
Yeah, maybe you could just watch the trailer.
Exactly. Just watch the trailer and listen to this.
There you go. Well, you guys have a wonderful rest of your week or weekend whenever you're listening to this.
Feel free to comment or rate us on Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Subscribe on YouTube.
You can do that as well.
They
or
aren't-
you can email us too, right?
Or you can email us.
At
microsodspodcast@gmail.com.
awesome.
On YouTube, they are not videos yet. I mean, they're not videos. I just want to warn you, it's just our podcast. It's on YouTube. I'm not discrediting it. I'm just, please don't get too excited. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
our
like when you
faces.
call your grandma and you don't really want to be on FaceTime, so you get FaceTime audio, right?
Exactly. YouTube audio. YouTube audio.
See? There you go.
We'll see you next time.
Really appreciate you guys, and
Oh my
we'll see you
gosh.
next time.
Okay, bye.